Hey guys, it's Coach She here. Listen, I wanted to take a few minutes to just talk to you about rooted in resilience, the group therapy experience, and what that means. This atmosphere is really being curated to allow for individuals like me, my Black sisters, to come together and have a space of pouring into, being able to have an opportunity to breathe through some things, and to lay down some of the experiences that we've been carrying over the course of our journey. It's a space where I believe we get to have a collective restoration. Now, I love that, right? Because I believe in the power of the crowd and the wisdom that is going to be shared in these group therapy experiences are wisdoms that only come from people like us, right? There will be different generations on in the session that will allow us to hear narrations of their stories and experience what rooted in resilience actually means. Now, there are many of our other sisters that have asked to join in on this experience. And because of my profession, I have a multicultural background. I work with many individuals just based on the fact that I am a therapist and we work in many cultures. I've had to politely tell them that this time, this is not for you. I have put this together for my sisters. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to do that for us. Now, I am of the opinion that sometimes people may think that when you put something together for people like us, that people are not necessarily interested. And sometimes that could be true. But I also have another thought. I think that sometimes for my sisters, right, we can be so busy with life and so busy with the responsibilities and so busy with the strong Black woman syndrome that oftentimes we don't slow down enough to take the time and allow ourselves to have a space to breathe. And sometimes that's all about how we value ourselves, right? We're used to giving to the children. We're used to giving to our relationships. We're used to giving to the job. And we show up and we over show up. And sometimes it takes us a minute to breathe out the reality that we need to value ourselves. Rooted in resilience is that opportunity for you. I would love for you to join me May 19th, Monday, May 19th. And you should see that on the flyer that is connected to this video, right? On one side or another. Monday, May 19th, we start the collective restoration of our sisters in shared narration, in community, in spaces of healing and responsibility. Now, the details of the itinerary are on my website. You can go there and look at the exact itinerary. Each session, the investment is $25, or for the entire 6 is $150. Now, we did that to allow for an a la carte experience for those individuals that might see some titles or topics that they say, oh, I've had enough of that. Let me just focus on three of these. And then for others, they will say, listen, I want the whole experience. I want all 6. Listen, if that is you, I want you to make the commitment to yourself. This time, value you and go ahead and register, because your registration and your payment holds your slot. And we only have 15 slots available. Nope, let me recap. We only have 11 slots available now. So I would love for you to join this process with us. And by the time we get to the end, I think that you will feel lighter, that you will have greater perspective, that the term resilience will be redefined for you, and you can help not just yourself, but you can help others in your sphere of influence manage their anxieties as well. Listen, I'm Coach She. Check out all of the details on www.shazettaMorris.com. And I look forward to seeing you Monday, May 19th at 7 p.m. Don't miss it. Be a part of the experience. Have a great evening. Bye. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Coach She here. Listen, we are back tonight. I'm so excited. I've called us the Peanut Gallery tonight. And yes, I got shaded last week for being by myself, but I think it's because the Saints just missed me. So I am ready for what is about to embrace me. But before we get to that, this thing that we started last week, welcome, welcome, welcome to everybody. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. Last week, we did a teaching on mental health and spirituality. We are not enemies. And so we got a lot of traction, questions, backdoor conversations around that particular piece. And I love the feedback from other people, but they ain't no feedback like the peanut gallery's feedback. So we're gonna get them connected to the process and see what their experience is. Welcome to all of you. Please like, please share. If you are on any of the social media platforms, I would love for you to send us a note. Just say hey. If you know me personally, say hey to me. If you know one of the other panelists personally, say hey to them. Um, just shout some people out. We want to make sure that we can see your comments. Last week, I had the privilege of kind of going back throughout the week, and I saw that so many people had shared the information. People were talking about it. This thing sometimes will make you or try to make you believe that nobody is watching. But by the time I got through all the shares and all the comments, there were a lot of people sharing the content and information. So please, if you know individuals that could benefit from this, please share it, whether they will watch it live or whether they will watch it later. I think it's going to be beneficial for them. It would have benefited you to watch last week's segment because there was just straight content that I wanted to provide. Tonight, we're going to have content, but we're going to also have nuance because we come with our experiences, we come with our opinions, we come with our expertise. But ultimately, I think that this is going to be a robust conversation with all of the partners that are joining us. So I'm just going to get them all on at the same time. Let me see. I don't know if it'll let me do that though. Well, you know what? I'm gonna start with one. She got a visitor in her backdrop. She's ready for me. This is Bree Jackson. Hello, Bree Jack. We see you and Bella in the house. Why is Bella looking like this? And because Adam Watson is laughing, we're going to include him right now. Yes. Welcome.
Y'all see, don't do
Welcome.
Bella like that.
We are going to do Bella like that tonight. Adam Watson is out of the grand state of Texas. Welcome, welcome.
Okay.
Oh, what does that symbol mean?
It was
Let's
a T.
Oh, it's a T. Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure, everybody got hand signals and
You
handshakes,
right.
secret stuff, and we don't always know. So bless the man of God for his presence. Bree Jackson is joining us from the wonderful state of Delaware. Not Bree, B Jackson. It's the Bree and the B. Bree and B. Bree and B. B Jackson is joining us from the great state of Delaware. So grateful to have her on. And the bishop is on time and
Oh,
he is.
oh. Well, hello there.
Oh my God. It is the
Celebrity.
shade that y'all give the man of God.
After that wonderful introduction, I'm like, okay, who wouldn't be on time? Cause
Ah,
we had Coach C Van Zandt.
ah.
Hey. Oh.
that was
Wow.
that was that was
That
so
was
wonderful. I
very
enjoyed it.
nice. But I can't
Listen. Let me tell you something. I enjoyed it,
Woo,
and
that
I
was
and
good.
Was it?
That was good,
and I and
man.
I and I love the kind of soft flex. She was like, okay, we've got 15. No, we actually have 11.
Period.
Baby, the seats are going. The seats are
Yeah,
moving. Y'all better get
hello.
on.
Huh?
Y'all better get in it.
Hmm.
It
It
just
just went
went
down
down
to
to
it just went
seven.
down to
Y'all
7.
missed it.
Listen, I did that video and it was already down to 7 and I just didn't update the video. So whomever's watching that, you really got to get into your space and position. If you desire to get in on it, this starts next Monday. I'm really excited about it.
Yes.
Yes.
Report. We
Wait,
can't hear you, Adam.
right. Prophet, where's your volume?
I'm sorry, I've been doing all this talking, couldn't nobody hear me. So, Bishop, I need you to get your wife. She
Why?
got she got all the women rooted in resilience, right? But she don't realize that we need to be repaired from rejection. She notice how she built something that she got us close, right? All blacks. Then she put the women to the side, like, let me give y'all special attention. What about the brothers? So are you supposed to be doing the one for the guys? Because mental health and spirituality, we are not enemies.
Oh, well, I hear somebody calling Bishop out.
Bishop,
Hold on, wait a
we
minute.
need help
Wait.
out here.
Yeah, Coach can't do it.
Hold on, wait.
Well, okay. Well, hold on. Wait a minute. Why can't I do that one?
But no.
I used to. Okay, so
let me rephrase that. She shouldn't have to do it.
Huh?
She shouldn't have to do it.
So
Oh, but
here's-
did you want Adam? Did you want a licensed life coach, clinician, therapist elect to do?
Elect, not elect.
Elect?
Wait,
Yeah, therapist elect. A therapist
not a
elect
therapist elect.
to do this class for the men's.
A therapist elect.
I want to separate. I mean, the women got their own thing.
Get
So
Layla.
you want Bishop to do it?
Layla, get
I-
Layla.
first off, I think the team of them is amazing. The team of them is amazing because we get a chance to get his wisdom and his insight from the male perspective, and her wisdom and insight from a female and a therapist thing. But at the end of the day, we all know that this is going to end up becoming a man-on-man thing. Like, ultimately, we're going to want to hear what the bishop got to say anyway. So, I mean, at some point, we can start off with the group flow. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, look, we need something for us too. Y'all got 6 weeks.
Isn't that great?
At only $25. What? Like, what? What?
Start your own.
$25. Look, I think everybody here can tell Adam needs a couch.
And
I
do
need
it
a
for
couch
free.
somewhere. Somebody needs to be dealing with my brain. I think everybody knows it. And so we gotta do something, help us out.
Okay. So here's the thing for me. Thing is for me is, and I'd say this all the time, it's probably me because of the fact that I always say I am an individual man, and everything that I say, considering manhood, I speak from my own concept. That does not mean that every man is the same, because manhood is not a monolith. There's different things that pertain to different men. So something that I might say, because we already got enough gurus going on in the social media streets. So I'm like, if just because it speaks to me doesn't mean it speaks to the next man. So I'm always very conscious about that when it comes to speaking about what would be considered gender normative things. And I'm like, okay, well, I might be different from the next man. This might work for me, but this might not work for him.
Well, Bishop, I don't think that any man can grab the bullhorns of normal. I mean, like, everybody, we're all weird and in our space. And I think that if there's something that probably makes you different from everybody, is, well, you and Dr. Daniels are a great mixture of supernatural and natural. Wisdom from on high, wisdom from life spaces, and y'all have navigated the car accidents that happen in the social media streets. So I think that most men will be like, they find it easy to talk to you because you don't make us sound like we're crazy, and you can very easily match our crazy. And I think that that's the blessing of you and Coach, that in y'all brilliant spaces, y'all can still match our crazy. And there's nothing that we can say that would shock either one of you, except for the fact that Bella's roommate is unalived, and she is really acting like this is something. I don't know. Watch it.
She had to get up.
Hi,
I'm sorry.
Bella.
She toppled over.
Bella is very much alive.
She ain't moved a bit.
Hold on, he said that Bella's roommate was
No, no,
unalive.
no, no.
Well,
He
I
did.
no,
wait a
no, no.
minute,
I didn't
breathe.
say Bella's roommate was unalive. Don't put that on me.
You
I'm trying to
did.
figure out.
You did.
That's what you
Yeah, I
said.
take that all the way back. I didn't know. I meant to say that Bella is unalive. Like she ain't moved at all. She ain't said a
No,
thing.
see,
She's very rude.
this take you back to before the Great
Huh?
Fall.
I don't,
This takes you back before
Well,
the
she
Great
still ain't
Fall
talking.
when we and God were one. Who was
Huh?
talking? Huh? Yeah, there wasn't nobody
What are you talking
talking
about?
before the Great Fall. Before Eve had bit that fruit, huh? We weren't talking.
Somebody
Everything
was
was
there
there.
because he said, "Let us make man in
Oh
our
God,
own
I'm gonna leave
image."
this alone
Somebody was
because I
there.
just ran into a woman
Yeah,
with no
yeah, they
word
was
life.
there. They was in the
Look,
garden.
Bree, you
I'm
gotta
wait,
just
have a
I know
word
what
life
I
too.
know where she
the
pulled that from,
way
though. Come on, Dr. Dana Davis. I heard you.
the
I heard
Uh-uh.
way
you.
that the
The
Men
telepathy is
telepathy
set
was
up,
set
huh?
up before this. The telepathy was set up until Genesis
So
2:7.
she's walking. Bella is
At
walking
Genesis
in
2:7,
that,
it was no
huh?
longer telepathy.
Do you see that this is a melanated
No,
dog?
I see that. I don't see
She's
no
melanated.
heartbeat. I don't see nothing. I ain't heard a
What?
bark, a whisper, not a thing.
She melanated.
Uh-uh. You can't do that on here.
Are we
Uh-uh.
going
Yes.
to engage this today? Okay, so let me ask a question before we go to the issue for serious, because you guys touched on something that I think is really interesting. It's going to strictly be opinion based, but do you all feel as men that only men can speak to you all regarding male issues, male mental health issues? Do you prefer that as men or what? I'm asking that because when we talked briefly a little bit about the whole idea of Bishop Jakes with Women Thou Art Loose and the excessive response, probably because of his name brand, number one, and then his influence, that if someone from the female persuasion would have put together a manpower, would it have gotten the same kind of response? I would
Oh boy.
love to hear you all's feedback from a male perspective.
Oh boy.
Initially,
Mm-hmm,
initially, I don't believe that a woman would have gotten the same impact initially.
mm-hmm,
But we know that the reason why many times the reason why men don't like cats is because a cat will come into the house, walk right up on you, freedom in the house, and they will claw you for no reason. And that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why women have gotten, in a very bad sense.
Wait, hold on. Did Adam just call the
Can
women?
you let me finish, ma'am? Let me
Yeah,
finish.
I do. I just
You,
didn't. I'm
you didn't
going.
let me finish.
I'm going to let you finish. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So
Go
You.
ahead.
that's the reason why women, in the very negative sense, have
Mm-hmm,
been called catty, because they've been known to walk up into spaces and for no reason at all
mm-hmm,
pull their some of them have pulled claws, and because that's become a negative connotation that's been put on women from the Bible until now. A woman who runs her mouth at home is really dangerous, blah 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 blah. All these negative connotations that have been put on females is probably the reason why men in a lot of spaces they reject the wisdom of a female. But I believe that a woman that the reason why women enjoy TD Jakes is because he came in to bring freedom to spaces without judging. And I think that the reason why women therapists can be so effective is because therapy in itself does not necessarily have a judgmental flaw to it, as opposed to a critiquing. Hey, let's talk about this. Let's ask questions and come to something that helps. So I think that a woman doing a manpower would watch this. If a woman had done manpower, and they were as strong or had enough and as much notoriety as TD Jakes, I think that it could have been the same flow, because manpower fell apart. At some point, you did not have the men were speaking to just manpower became a situation where the men were speaking to the physical needs of the man and not all the overall spot of it, which is the reason why as manpower began to die down, Bishop comes out with he motions to start dealing with the other side of it. So I think that a woman is very capable, sometimes more effective in these spaces as a man, because I don't think that you can have proper therapy without compassion, or and proper therapy without empathy. And I think that women have empathy in spades. So when a man is going to communicate with a broad flow of females, of women, he has to exude that same level of empathy that says, hey, I don't completely understand what you're going through, but the part of you that I do understand, I'm feeling you. So from a man's perspective, from me as a guy, that's how I see it. I think y'all were killed from the word go. I think that women have been assassinated from the word go. Their assumptions seconded, their emotions seconded, their thought process devalued. I think from the word go, y'all were put as second and put on the back burner. So now user fight women are saying we belong at the you level. We belong at the equal balance level. And in a lot of spaces, you're still trying to get there, not just in women are trying to get there, not just in life, but in the minds of men, to say, I matter. Last point, and I'll shut up. I was just doing a study on Hannah, and Hannah had a situation where she couldn't give birth because the Lord had closed her womb, right? And so one day, Elkanah, her husband, comes up to her, and the Bible says he's given her a double portion, and a double portion for man, for sons meant they get inheritance, but for women it meant he gave her more food. That was her double portion. He was putting more food into her belly. And she's like, oh no, there's something else I need in my belly that you can't give me. And he asks a question. He says, am I not better to you than 10 sons? And the Bible never says her answer, but the answer was no. You are not better to me than 10 sons because you can't give me legacy. Mm-hmm. And at this point, and the amazing thing about women is women think more about the establishing of legacy than men do, because men have the seed. So it's a whole like crazy thing, but there's certain things that women desire that men are trying. We are trying our damnedest to try and fix, but we can't fix it because what we're trying to fix on a physical level is what they're trying to tell us is an emotional type thing. So that's the reason why I think that TD Jakes was so brilliant at the move that he did. But you'll find that most men will listen to Sarita more than they'll listen to TD Jakes. All right, Bishop.
That's so interesting. Is he typing?
I'm sorry. Okay. Or what was the question?
After all that,
The peanut gallery is back.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question goes back to
Big stop.
Seeing if, okay, so now I got to think about it. How
are men is a woman capable just as capable as being effective at doing a men's conference as TD Jakes was at doing a women's conference?
I would change that word capable, because I know that they are capable. I don't think that's the point. I think the issue was more about attractability. Would they have been able to influence a male manpower space like Bishop Jakes influenced a woman thou art loose space?
Can you receive from a woman?
I would say yes and no, only from the standpoint of I do believe that women are capable, but it would require men to be able to be receptive.
I think that was the question. I thought that was the question. Can a man receive from a woman? Because we're not. Are we relatable as far as giving out the information, like handing out
Mm-hmm.
advice and trying to maneuver it, like help walk through
Mm-hmm.
those spaces?
I I think I wonder
Go ahead.
at some point, do we ever, if that is just a general space, and we can dig down into that for so many different reasons, but we won't tonight. I wonder at some point, will we ever get to the space where this is not a conversation, that it is just what it is, right? You know, people land with their expertise. They come with the information that they have. I don't have your experience, but I still have a knowledge that can benefit you. And sometimes we don't get past the visualization, and then there's the limitation, right? And so I just wonder if we'll ever get to the day where this is not a conversation.
I think it'll always be a situation where um, I heard a speaker who said that um, this is, I can't use the word because of the airways that we're on, but he said the understanding was a Negro jump, Negro dance, or a Negro singer, Negro die. So singing,
Mm,
dancing, jumping, the entertainment spaces and sports spaces, that's where we excelled because that's where we were allowed to. And
mhm,
I think that if men open up their minds to the conversation, just to the conversation, not to the appeal. The woman doesn't have to be, um, she doesn't have to meet a certain visual in order to be um, heard, but just simply have, and vice versa, to simply be able to have the conversation. I think that in many cases, women are more locked in to the plight and the struggle of watching their brothers and their fathers struggle, that they might just be way more effective at speaking to men than men.
I agree with that because I feel like TD Jakes definitely had the ability to um, one because women especially in those spaces were used to men doing the pouring, although there are some things that men cannot relate to when it comes to what women go through. But they were always willing and always receptive to what men would say concerning what they feel like um women could do, should do, or whatever, or whatever like that. I also feel like that Jake's what he did was he also platformed women.
Yes,
I think there was a certain space of equity and inclusion that he gave with "Woman Thou Art Loose." It wasn't just to heal women, but it was also to bring a certain platform, a little boost up in inclusion and equality when it came to men and women functioning together. I, but he was very, but he also comes from a generation where, although he gave a boost, he didn't give enough in order for us to walk shoulder to shoulder with each other. There was always this sense of, okay, I'm gonna lift you up, but but just enough to where it doesn't feel like that there is consistent equality and inclusiveness, that there inclusive, that there is, you still walk just a little bit behind me. But to me, that comes from just his generation of thought. That doesn't necessarily come from him having some level of maliciousness. It just comes from the generation that he came from.
Bishop, can I
um
redress that? Can I, by asking you a question?
yeah, go
Do
ahead.
you do you believe that? Do you believe that that was solely on him, or do you think that that was probably the result of some people who got that platform and then abused it and turned on him, that made him kind of maybe put some spaces there? Or do
I,
you
be,
think that was just generational, like the way he was
I
raised?
believe it could be both. I believe it can be both. I'm speaking to the concept of him. with the generational piece is because even throughout, even beyond him doing what he did, there's still some sense of it in his the way that he speaks. Um, which to me is fine because I can't expect somebody of his generation. He saw manhood and womanhood in a certain way, um, in the generation that he was born in. So I can't knock him for that. What I what I feel like when it comes to us now, the generations of us now, of us brothers now, is that we are in a space to we can we can progress the narrative and have an understanding that both genders, or both male and female, have something of equal measure to bring to the table. And there's not me then you, but it's me and you.
Right.
And it's required to be that. The brighter light or the lesser light doesn't mean that one is greater than the other. It just means that there's different functions. And the problem is that because we feel like, we use scriptures of, women are the weaker vessel, or all those other spaces that we, from a standpoint of just thinking about it from a carnal aspect, we think of it as a thing of, okay, well, she's a weaker vessel, so she cannot, stop, move, man. Sorry, that's Teddy. So sit down. I love you too. So that it's impossible for her to function in leadership, or function in some level of headship, or whatever like that. The weaker vessel only means that she might be weaker physically, but women most of the times trump us in every other aspect, spiritually and mentally. The churches would not be able to function without women. We gotta understand that. That's why I can't stand when people say, this year is the year of the woman, because of the fact that there was a woman running for president.
It's every
I'm
year.
like, I'm
year
like,
of the-
I hate when they use aspects of, and I really felt like I told coach, I said, this year's not the year of the woman. If there's any aspect or anything similar to what people are saying, it's more so, it's not the year of the woman. It's the year that men have actually come to grips to understand that there's something that women can offer that we just wasn't allowing them to give. That's in the scripture. The Bible says that Adam finally saw, that Eve was brought to Adam, and that Adam was able to see Eve for exactly who he was. He was
bone of my
able he
flesh,
right
right?
right he was able to fully see Eve for exactly who she was, and her, and not just who she was physically, but also her abilities as a helpmeet. A helpmeet doesn't mean that it's that you are lesser than me. You come and meet me in the spaces of my insecurity and my weaknesses. So I need you.
But see, this is the reason, Bishop. This is
Uh-huh.
why we need to have that conversation, so we can have that whole conversation. Because so many times it's been said that a woman, like, help me meet my destiny. Nah. How do we work this together? Right. Anyway, we're not talking about that. But most important question of the night. Hey, Bella, what did you think about that?
Oh my gosh. You know what?
To listen in the spirit.
She still ain't talking. Okay, all right. That's my point. No.
Oh gosh,
Okay. All right.
that was
But
good.
that's why men got to have those conversations.
It's good context because I think sometimes every time we have this conversation, we have it amongst us over these last 17 years of different things, and it seems like me and my husband switch. Not that we switch sides, but it's interesting to see how this conversation comes to light. Tonight, we're going to talk about mental health and spirituality not being enemies. My hope is that one day they will become friends because we have done such an interesting job of keeping those things divided. And in reality, this is a space where it is needed.
Mm-hmm.
It is more needed. It was always needed. It just was either untouched or scathed off as being a demonic element of ourselves. But now, in this space where we are highlighting more of our internal capacities beyond our physical experiences, people are learning that they have been underdeveloped in areas because they have not been highlighted. So, we want to talk about some of that tonight. But before we get to that, we are going to hit our Is You for Serious segment. Right? Is that what we're doing? Let's see. We get into our Is You for Serious segment. Let's see what we are watching tonight and what we're going to talk about real quick around that. Bree, you want to set that up?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to. There's just it. This one isn't as funny as the other ones, but obviously it's like the same type of controversy that we've been facing um with melanated and colored people.
Okay.
So the colored people are so it's just basically there's just a battle going on. Like, people are divided if it was intentional or if it wasn't intentional on what the adult did in the video. So I just want to see everybody's perceptions when it
Okay,
comes to that.
perfect. Let's take a look at it. Let's see.
That was rude. Nadia Boucher.
Oh Lord.
Olivia, Layton, Riley, Shania. Woo! Come stand behind your dancers. Let's get that photograph, everybody. Right? Do we have any more dancers that want to come up from Dance Expressions? Hurry! Quick! Come on up! Come on up! Quick! There we go. We'd love to see this. Big round of applause for Dance Expressions, everybody. Congratulations. Let's straight ahead. 3, 2, 1, smile. Thank you, everybody. Great job.
What y'all think of that?
Do y'all think it was intentional or it was unintentional?
Can I go first? Because I gotta I gotta hop off real quick. I gotta hop off in a little bit. I do think it was intentional.
I can't
after I
hear
looked
nothing.
at it.
You can't hear Brian?
Can you hear me?
I
I
can
can
hear.
hear you.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
I gotta hop off in a little bit. I do think it was intentional.
I can't hear nothing.
Okay, somebody's got
Can you hear
double back.
Brian? Can you hear me?
Okay, I can. All right, I'm listening on the other side. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. I think I can I was looking at it and at first I was kind of like, and I told coach, I was like, I've done things, if I'm called out like out of nowhere, and I'm just trying to get off real quick. Coach, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get I'm trying to hurry up and get out of the way. My anxiety will cause me not to be aware of certain things, because I'm just trying to hurry up, do what they ask me to do, and get out the way. Like for example, and like Brianna sang, Brianna sings at the church, my 9 o'clock service church, and I told Brianna, I said, Brianna, I'm going to introduce you before, because she was supposed to be doing the closing song. We had to do 2 songs. She was going to do the closing song. I said, I'm going to introduce you before I get started because we're going to be in the midst of worship. So there's an expectation that worship will be taking place and then you're going to pick up from there. So I'm not going to do any introductions while we're in worship because it at that point ain't nobody important. So I'm going to
Mhm.
introduce you um, before then. I think we were in the midst of something and we were in the midst of transitions. I completely forgot to introduce Brianna. And so when I was done, Brianna said to me, "You forgot to introduce me." I said, "Oh my bad, I'm sorry." I
Yes.
said, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." So I understand about just moving quick and just whatever. But then I watched it two more times, and there were just certain movements, the way that she moved her arm, because the girl did reach out for her. The girl did
She
reach
did.
out for her, and she extended herself to reach her arm, and the lady, she moved her arm a little bit further back and then walked around. I was like, "Oh no, this is
Right.
intentional." And then I did some digging
Mhm.
because I didn't want to take it at face value. I did some digging and realized that the mother, who's a Caucasian woman, the father is black, the mother is Caucasian. The mother told her what she did, and the woman act like she didn't know what she was talking about. Um, it got so much to the point to where people started to call the dance studio and tell how and
Mm.
about how they treated the girl or whatever like that. Instead of reprimanding the teacher, they kicked the girl out.
Oh,
Wow.
They
Wow. And what city
this
was
was
this in?
in I think it's Gainesville. I think it's Gainesville or Plainsville.
Okay.
Let me check.
Florida or
Hold
Georgia?
on, hold on. Wait a minute.
Right.
Is this a Gainesville,
mm-hmm.
Georgia?
Hold on. Dance, because I don't
But
want to
that
say their names I don't want us to get nothing. Um,
Understood.
Dag. I'm sorry, Plainville, Connecticut.
okay.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm.
Plainville, Connecticut. So they said they made a they said that in order to keep levels of inclusion and just our quality of service, they decided to part ways with the family.
That's how you continue to have inclusion
That's
by
that's
excluding.
listen, that's what I'm saying. And I know, and there's got to be a problem because if you watch at the tail end, and I noticed it, and the people in social media was pointed out, there was another seemed like a biracial girl who was on the other end. She got her hair pulled by the white boy that was standing in the back of her. Somebody
I
in the
did not
audience
pay.
said, "Stop pulling her hair." Y'all look back at the clip. Like the last few seconds, she gets her hair pulled. And he pulled it hard.
I
Wow.
did not.
At that point,
Pay.
I just wanted to go to I'm ready to go to Plainsville because I'm like, okay, listen.
We ride at dawn.
I told y'all 2 weeks ago that I will put two ponytails in my hair and fight some kids.
I
Absolutely.
got you.
What's up?
I got
What we
you.
doing?
Yeah, that was kind of weird. I didn't watch it as thoroughly, but my husband, bless his whole heart, he is going to get to the nitty gritty around.
You better
Yes,
inspect the
he
gadget
is.
the video.
Vector.
Come
Anybody
on.
else got feedback as it relates to what you saw?
I was going to say that
Oh.
you know,
Mm.
when if my friend is watching, she would tell you like B will always try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Mhm.
Because I was thinking when I first seen the video, like, all right, black people will make some racist stuff.
Correct.
we will find a way for it to be racist.
Correct.
So I'm like, I felt like at first glance that it's an award ceremony. Like the teacher ran up and she's just like, okay, hugging the people. They started talking, and she's like, okay, let me focus back on the person that's talking to me. Like, the host. So she's just like, oh, okay, guys. And she kind of like, just jump back. So I'm like, okay, I don't think that was intentional. It just happened to be a person of color. But again, as Brian said, like the further details of the video, I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, maybe she, oh, baby. And then to hear about they parted ways with the family. We also don't know all of the stuff that entails. Somebody else, the family might have acted a fool, because social media will boost some stuff, and they might not even have been thinking about it. They might not even like paid it no mind, but when it went viral, they was like, "Well, you know what? She did act like that." So now let me call. You ain't gonna be. I paid too much money to this studio for you to be. Yeah. All right. Well, go on, baby. You go ahead on and find your studio for Lil Shay Shay. Get a Lil Shay Shay dance down the street. But I will say, I understand, because honey, let a dance not where, first of all, where I'm paying my money, you need to like all of it, like all of us, because at the end of the day, the only color that matters is green, because I'm paying you. Okay, so you can't be racist. But as a dance mom, I would have tore that whole that whole concert up. I'm moving all the furniture, baby. What you
Wow.
doing?
There's so many nuances with all of those pieces, right? So we would never know everything that took place in that. But visualizations, man, it's scary because they can,
It
it
didn't
didn't
look
look
great.
good. The visuals, the optics did not look good with that. Interestingly enough, one day that's one of those things that I would hope would come to an end. These kinds of things. We are, by what, 2030, we are going to be more brown than anything else. So I don't one day I want these conversations to come to an end. I don't know if it will just by request. I'm just saying one day.
It goes back to that video that we watched about that breed. Did you post? Let me share that with us when we was talking about during Black History Month. The trauma, trauma.
Whoa,
What was it called? Slavery.
which one?
Was it
Post-traumatic
slavery?
slave syndrome? Yeah, with Dr.
Yes,
Joy.
yes. I feel like it goes back to that, because we already we always have the assumption that something, we always tie race into something, as for discriminatory. That's always the first line, but there are other levels of discrimination. You could be discriminated because race, gender, like religion, or other areas, but we
The
will
little
pull that
girl
race
could be
card in.
disrespectful to the teacher. You never know.
Yeah, but we will pull that race card in a minute. Now, some I'm not saying that it's not always, it hasn't been more true than not. But first, our brains always deviate on over there to the air. It's because I'm black.
Hold
All
on,
right,
but
you right.
Bernicia, is it so then are you saying that um if a situation happened to you when you were 13 and it was absolutely blatantly racial, right? But now that um you are in your glorified 20s,
I'm
that
20.
now that you're glorified 20s, that same situation um, may not be racial because you've changed, or is the situation still racial? Um, uh, just your response to it has shifted, because I feel like um, the reason why we are more apt to understand racism is because of when we were younger, we didn't know what it was. We had to learn what it meant to not be equal with somebody. When we were, I had to learn in the late 70s that my white counterparts in school were going to get um, treated better by the white teacher than I did, because that wasn't in my culture. So I had to learn what racism was, and then in learning it, it became a thing where I would see it everywhere. So now,
Correct.
and maybe this is a question for Coach. Now I can't unsee it, and I don't know if racism is something that can be unlearned. I don't know if it can be unlearned. I think that our maybe our response to it can be, but I don't know if I can unsee what I've been seeing for years and now call it something different.
The unseeing is trauma, though. If you can't unsee it, that's trauma. That's trauma.
But
If you can't decipher, if you are not able to decipher between what is and what is not, that's trauma.
no,
If
no,
you're
no,
in
no,
an
not what
abusive
it is, not what it
relationship,
is and what it's not. It's that
There
because
you
I've
go. You
been
gotta hold it.
seeing it my whole life, right? I don't
Oh, I
know
gotta turn it.
how me seeing it, if I've been seeing it consistently for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
now I see it, and now I'm just going to put it to something else. Because that's the reason why I'm asking it. Y'all are wilding out with these backgrounds.
Sorry, sorry,
that
sorry,
was
y'all.
new.
Sorry,
Because y'all hitting my topic. I love
Okay.
it.
sorry.
Yeah, because the problem is like this. We knew. Here goes my example. Tell me if I'm wrong on my example. I'll yield to it. We've been dealing with race and all these racial problems. Blah blah blah. Pandemic comes. George Floyd comes. Mike Brown comes. All these things coming where we're watching all these people be killed. Trump comes back in the office and he writes an executive order that removes any type of racial disparity or anything that makes quote unquote white history look bad from all museums associated with government. To me, that's racist. To me. Because I've been watching how it's been where we've been pushed out of everything. Our story is essentially trying to be erased. And I'm like, okay, so for me, I see that as racist. And I will even yield to, yes, I'm traumatized. But the question is, Coach or Bernicia, does my trauma make what I viewed any less true?
Mm.
I,
That's a pretty easy question. Go ahead.
I feel like it does. That's just me. I'm sorry. I do. I feel okay. I'm going back to the racial situation.
Uh-huh.
Okay. If you have a city that is high has high numbers for for a race situation like deep south, like we're from up north, from deep south, like you in Jackson, Mississippi, um and every other week it's a race riot, or it's not even 2025, let's say it's 1965, where they have been marching for equalities amongst for African Americans. If you constantly walk down the street and you see your brothers and your sisters lynched or hosed and all kind of things, or police officers are talking to you like you're dirt, when you get a nice officer who's just doing his job and asking you to move your car, you're automatically going to say, oh, he's racist. No, he's doing his job. But because you identify the racist cops with anybody in blue now. Everybody in blue is out to get you. That's trauma.
That's
And
for real.
not the distinction, and not being able to to be able to say, okay, no, I'm breaking the law right now, or this man just wants to issue me a ticket because I'm doing something wrong. It makes people feel like they are justified in anything that they do. Oh, because they're out to get me. They're not out to get you. But again, if you cannot distinguish what's between the right and the wrong, you're traumatized.
Okay, but I think that
Which
that's a
which which
mental
leads
health.
to people getting shot and stabbed and killed
Yeah,
from misconceptions.
but that might be a mental health thing. Like
It is.
my grandfather and all my uncles, right? They're all military, law enforcement, blah blah blah. Um, but we had racist cops, and so
They're
um,
around.
my grandfather, who was a sheriff, said, "Look, when a cop does this, this is what you do. If a cop pulls you over, this is what you do. Regardless of how you might feel about him, your response and your actions are going to tell him something, and he's going to respond in kind." And so So whether I was, whether I am, I'm asking the question again, whether I am traumatized by a moment or not, whether my mom, rephrase, let's say a person in my life, okay,
No
is
worries.
that, y'all talking to me?
No, we're not talking to you.
Okay, all right. I was like, if I saw, okay, Bernicia, so somebody that me and you are talking to the same person, and okay, I get it. We're talking to the same person, right? And this person tells us that this person saw 3 members of their family killed by policemen, and so because of that, whenever if they're ever pulled over by a cop or accosted by a cop, they immediately step into anxiety. That's a very natural situation based on what happened, because they are traumatized. But is their fear not warranted? Like, I understand the trauma of it. I'm still dealing with some trauma spaces. I'm still dealing with, how do I open up my heart to receive from a certain level of individual because of something that I went through. These individuals don't know each other, but I can still very easily connect one with the other. And even when I confessed it to the individual smiled and said, but that ain't me. Kept coming back to, that ain't me. And until I could literally disconnect them from, disconnect this situation from that situation and allow this situation to live on its own merits, I didn't come out of that trauma. Now, do they still do things that make me side-eye them? Yeah, but that's where I'm trying to figure out the difference between trauma and truth, and allowing, but because sometimes your trauma might spare somebody else they struggle. So I feel like I feel like sometimes we channel, because I had to look at that video again, because I was like, I think that what I think don't matter. The situation could be seen either way, and I think that sometimes everybody makes a mistake, and I'm going to go all the way back to Matthew, where Jesus said, "Judge not, that you be not judged." Because when everybody starts putting judgments on things and opinions on things, with the problem with social media, is when nobody actually can come to a clear consensus on what's going on. So that's the reason why I think everybody needs a trusted therapist who can listen to all things, because I think that therapists, Coach, did you have to go through a training on listening?
Listen, our training is continual, and listening is the core concept of it.
Okay. I think that that's probably the reason why you are more effective at arbitration and mediation, I should say, because y'all know how to gather from both sides what they're trying to say and make sense of it. Ain't that right, Bella?
Why are we addressing Bella? Bella didn't do anything to us, okay? We're going to leave Bella alone.
Trying to prove a point. She's not in the conversation.
Aggravating uncle.
She's watching
That's
TV.
what it is. That's the aggravating.
She's watching TV. She's looking at something. What's in the corner? She looking at. Okay. All right, I'll shut up.
You know what though? You guys bring up an interesting point, because that trauma versus truth, or trauma in truth, or truth in trauma, is a very valid thing. There are some things that we're never, I'm not going to say never, let me not say that. There are some things that we do not come out of, because there is a constant re-traumatizing, regardless of if there is a new truth or not. And sometimes that is very difficult. So for instance, I have my son, and I've taught him in a way that would make him be open and honest in certain spaces. But I'm also, even though he knows how to obey or honor the law, I'm still going to teach him to have this extra level of care. Not because I've experienced something, not even because he's experienced something, but because I know or have had uncles that said, just watch out for this, just because of the way that you look. Just watch out for this. And sometimes it's very difficult to move out of those spaces and not have a concern about the generation that is coming after us, our children that we have, and we don't prepare them for the potential of what is still lingering around us. I think that that's difficult. I think that that's difficult. It's kind of like a catch-22. Now, I'm not going to actively go out here and just disobey the law, but I also understand that it is possible that regardless of what I do, the first visualization won't be what they're trying to investigate. The first visualization or the statistical understanding that a legal person may have is, okay, she looks like she could do this because she fits this mold. I never discount the fact that that's a reality for people. And that's our catch-22. There are other cultures that don't have that.
So is it impossible to disconnect from our feeling or our history of being profiled and their seemingly addiction to it? Is profiling, because everybody profiles, but we're the only ones who get killed in America. Maybe that's a profile. Maybe that's an unfair statement, maybe. But publicly, according to the media, we're the only ones who get murdered in mass because of a profile. I felt like they were going to do something, so I made a move. Stand your ground works because all somebody has to say is, I feared for my life. And if there's no cameras around, it's their testimony versus the dead body. So how do we heal from the trauma? Is there a way that one can stop profiling?
See, I don't know. All of those things kind of go back into, they're connected to things. So the question that you all asked earlier, or that you put out earlier, was that, can we unlearn things? Yes, absolutely we can. We can unlearn anything. But I want you to consider that there are things that have been put in our fabric and in our foundational years that become difficult to unlearn, right? Because when we're children and when we are at that 0 to, and I talk about this often, that 0 to whatever stage, I like the 7 age. Some people may go longer with that, but at that space, to me, this is just my opinion, I don't think that we learn anything through that space. I think we absorb things. We absorb more than we learn, because learning is choosing, to me, right? So if I'm absorbing things, I don't care which direction that I go. It's just innately in me to say, I'm going to refer to this thing. Just like when we talk about religion and people talk about, we're converting individuals from Islam to Christianity, or Christianity to another religion, right? You're really getting ready to take someone through a process of removing what they foundationally have been built upon or have absorbed in those earlier years. Most times, if you really think about it, some of us would not be Christians if we were not absorbed into the experience. Some of us may not be. If you were in another experience and absorb that experience, or that relational culture, or that religious culture, you may be or align or ascribe to another religion. That's how that learning works for children. There are things that are just kind of embedded in us, and it takes a while to say, or to recognize that it no longer serves us. So think about that from a traumatic perspective. If I've had an experience and it traumatized me, it puts an imprint in my brain. If they do a brain scan, there might be markers there. We don't necessarily know what the markers mean because they're emotional or mental markers, right? But we know that it's there. Every time something comes up, we move into this. We have this anxiety or this hypervigilance or this concern. And sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be something that actively happened to us. We could trigger what grandmama told us and say, nah, I need to be careful about this because it was imprinted in our foundational understanding. And so sometimes it takes us a long time to dig out those things that no longer serve us. Here's the thing though, if I'm getting ready to say to you that we're going to dig out this thing about racism because it no longer serves us, we don't have to be concerned about that. Then we also have to consider what we are seeing that is surrounding us. And we have to be able to say, is this systematic issue no longer present or relevant around me? Because if it is, there is no way for you to forget it. If it is continuing to happen in systematic approaches, in communities that you live in, if it is in any way connected to the possibility that someone could treat you differently because of this racism, whether systemic, whether individual, all of that. So sometimes people are not healing because they continue to see what they're trying to heal from.
Okay. Okay.
And that's difficult. So when you're talking about, because Bernice was correct, it's trauma. It's trauma when I am resorting back to my experience, and it's very valid because it happened. It happened to me. Tell me how somebody heals in an environment where it's still happening. They
Right.
don't. They can't. It's
You can't.
difficult. And so that's why I'm really careful about all kinds of trauma, religious trauma, um, employment trauma, family trauma, whatever type of trauma you have. It is very difficult to heal in the space that is constantly re-traumatizing you.
Okay. So then if it's constantly, then is it still properly termed trauma? Because it's not a past state. It's something that's if it's cyclical, is it still trauma or is it abuse?
Well, so that's a different thing. The abuse is actually an activity. The trauma is a overarching experience.
Okay.
What you continue when you have awareness of a thing and you continue to submit yourself to it, then we talk about we talk about the reality of why you constantly, after you have had awareness, constantly expose yourself to a thing, right? So that's more of a behavior, but
Okay.
do we continue to term it trauma? Yes. Now, depending on how it impacts you in the clinical setting, we can label those different things, right? Immediate response PTSD, long-standing trauma, delayed response PTSD, those kinds of different things that'll happen. For us, we can linger off into very severe anxiety around situations that continue to remind us, or even it may not be a reminder to us, but we are so conditioned to respond in a negative way out of fear. Our nervous system is dysregulated. We could have all kinds of responses to a thing, and that could come with different terminology for different things. But from a generalized trauma perspective, general space, we would still consider that to be trauma.
Okay.
And so just to segue from this space, a lot of times we will have, there are continual fights. And Bernicia, here's what I'll say to that from your perspective. I do wish that it would be easier for us to separate those spaces. And for some it is, and for some it's not. And so organizing individuals to a space where they could feel safe and work through those places is a continual work that oftentimes people don't take the time to do. Because once you were traumatized, our disposition as humans, and particularly African Americans, we are prone to allow our defaults to highlight more negative things than positive things. So you got to dig that seed out.
Jesus.
Yeah, we have to dig that seed out, which is why one of the reasons why we did this conversation about mental health and spirituality, we're not enemies, right? The reason why that piece was so important to me is because there are some things that we are looking at in the realm of the spirit. And you all can answer this for me. We highlight in your church experience or even in your spiritual experiences, because sometimes those could be two different things. Religion can have a certain flow and then spirituality can have another flow. Either way, there are often times where we do a lot of what I call, this is the term that we use in the clinical setting, spiritual bypassing. Have you all ever heard that term?
No.
Spiritual bypassing. Let me define what spiritual bypassing is for you, right? Spiritual bypassing is the tendency to use spiritual ideas, practices, or beliefs to avoid confronting difficult emotions, psychological wounds, or developmental challenges.
Wow.
So you guys have never heard of that statement?
Deflection. But not that.
Spiritual bypassing. I'll say it again. It's the tendency to use spiritual ideas, practices, or beliefs to avoid confronting difficult emotions, psychological wounds, or developmental challenges. It essentially involves sidestepping personal growth by focusing on spiritual concepts rather than acknowledging and working through emotional or psychological issues. So you know what that looks like? It looks like your emotions, feelings are not facts. That is one of the most difficult statements that I hear people say as it relates to that, because I really feel, well, first of all, God didn't give us feelings for no reason. They serve their purpose. They have a space. But when I hear people use that in religious or spiritual settings, most times religious settings, not spiritual, you're using the same emotion that you want people to ignore to heighten their senses. And it's crazy because it's the reverse psychology at its finest, right? So you teach people how to not be emotionally intelligent, and yet discount them or disconnect them from their responsibility to develop emotionally and mentally. And when you do that, you are separating yourself from the fullness of what Jesus came to experience, which is the balance of humanity, the balance of spirituality, and working the blend so that we can be emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually stable. But Jesus is going to fix it. That leaves me with no responsibility to do any of my own work. Jesus is going to heal my trauma, but it leaves me with no responsibility to do my own work. And we all have probably come up in that school of thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it makes us, watch this, hold on, Adam. It makes us, we are now behind the 8 ball emotionally. We have some of the most emotionally unintelligent people in the house of God that cannot handle their emotions. They can't manage them. And so when we see people tantrum and wild out, this is because we haven't put emphasis on, it's all right for you to be sad. You're going to be disappointed. Things are not going to always go your way. There's going to be loss in life. That's the natural order of things. Grief doesn't have to take you out. You have to learn how to have levels of resilience, because it's not going to always be what you desire in these moments. Sitting in feelings, not having to move them, being comfortable with the reality that we have. Simple feelings, complex feelings, all of those different dimensions that make us who we are. We don't master them. We push them under the rug. We avoid them. And in our greatest Holy Spirit experiences, we bypass them. And we leave people empty. And then we get to 40, 50, and we wondering, why grandma in the club? Because I still want to be young. That ain't about physical adulting. That's about an emotional space that was never settled. And so when I look at that, I'm like, oh my God, we're doing a disservice. And so our new children, this generation, they're coming up and say, we are tantruming out. Because, right, we expect children to tantrum. That is the phase that they're going to go through. If you're still tantruming at 40, something wasn't addressed. Something wasn't addressed in the phase that was appropriate. What is that? Somebody else talk about that.
Well, I was just saying I was traumatized because of my lenses and how I see things. Because when you did spiritual bypassing, my mind went to about 3 or 4 pastors who had children out of wedlock from females in the church, but nobody was allowed to talk about it because touch not mine anointed.
Right.
You know,
spiritual bypassing.
Spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
And so I was sitting there, I was like, man, my first question to myself, I started laughing at myself, was like, sometimes I wonder why my lens is so negative.
Why do you say that?
Because my lens, I go skeptical. I'm always looking for, I guess the negative sides of life are what code on me. They what tattoo or impact me. So that's how I remember. Maybe that's my lens. Mm-hmm. I had eye surgery, and having all these problems really came down to the fact that my lens was deteriorating. So when they replaced my lens, all of a sudden they replaced my lens to be able to see far really well. Mm-hmm. I can't see anything up close. So prophetically, that's a whole issue, right? But normally it's like this comes down to lenses. So when you were talking about spiritual bypassing, I'm like, man, so when you say emotionally unintelligent people, it's like, yeah, and I can see where we get that. Side note, I understand rooted in resiliency now. So thank you. Got it.
Oh, it wasn't a plug-in, but it is the truth, right? There were some spaces. I remember there are some individuals that we where I see the spiritual bypassing a whole lot is when we have death. Anybody ever experienced that? God was supposed to do it. He was supposed to fix it. We go through those spaces, and then when it doesn't happen, we can't understand why God didn't respond. And I am not discounting the idea of the miracle working God, but I also incorporate in the reality of the miracle working God, the many ways that he can do a thing, number one, and then the condition that the assignment that the body already has that we don't address. So if there is sickness, if there is sickness enduring long term, it's going to be ultimately our body is going to respond to that unto death at some point at an age or a stage. But we don't talk about that. There are people that go through crises and severe trauma because they never come to the reality of that understanding. And so when it happens, they are stuck. Right? So they never can engage grief. That's why grief counseling is so important. They never can really engage grief because they are so traumatized by this experience because of the bypass that said, we believe God to the end. And again, I am not discounting the reality of that, but there are pieces in this metaphysical experience that when we look at how it is modeled by Jesus, Lazarus died, and there was a response for his return. Jesus died. There are things that there are processes that individuals had to walk through, and he did not intercept them. And so sometimes we are looking for the escape versus the reality of living in our humanity here on earth. And that requires us understanding a whole bunch of things in the midst of that, not just looking through one lens, like you say, Adam, and discounting all of the other lenses. I think it emotionally does people a disservice because it almost shocks them into a reality that, oh my God, I didn't think that this could happen, but it really did. And now I am left with the emotion that I have not learned how to deal with. And I am in crisis as a result of it.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And so I really, for me, the mental experience when Jesus, when the scripture talks about man became a living soul or a living mind, all of those dimensions or components was in development at that same time. So there serves a purpose for our mental, will, intellect, emotion, and that abyss of the soul and the abyss of the spirit. They are interwoven like DNA. They are not separate like we have made them or intend to make them. The soul actually is the perception space that the body needs in order to engage any level of reality, including spirituality. Because how you see through your soul is how you see all things. So it becomes important. It becomes important that we start to do work to blend those things versus keeping them as staunch enemies, not energies, enemies against one another.
Yeah. Is that that in that soul spirit type the soul spirit, you're good, babe. The soul spirit war is the same as the mental health and spirituality thing?
To some degree, I think so. I don't think that the soul and spirit are in war. I think we've made it look like it's a war.
Okay.
I don't think that they are at war. I think that all spaces need to be addressed in order for every part of us to function in a healthy way. There is not one greater than the other.
Okay, because the war was created. It was brought up when it was talking about, certain things are enmity against God. It's not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. And so it seems like this thing was created, but you're positing that when God created Adam, Adam was in total perfect alignment, a spirit, soul, spirit, body, soul, spirit, like soul, body, whatever way you want to put it. He was in total alignment, and you're basically saying that we can still find that today, that balance.
I think so.
What do you think, Bella? Or Bree? I mean, you brought your associate on, so I thought that was your agent.
I don't know if this gonna be off topic or not. It's just what stuck with me is us talking about the spiritual bypassing and then me trying to thoroughly understand it in the simple fact that I experienced that in the loss of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And sitting here having a side conversation with Kara because usually when I'm trying to fully understand something, she placed things in perspective for me. And I'm sitting here like, I think that learning this just freed me because I was so angry with God. And Coach can attest to this. When I say I was angry, I'm talking about I was angry. I wasn't talking to God. I didn't want to do praise and worship. I didn't want to do nothing that had anything to do with acknowledging that God is God. And I don't know. I'm just
And
I
Bree, when you
I
said
have
where in it, what part was it that hit you? Because when you turned your head, I thought you were talking Bella.
No, what hit me with the spirit casting is I was in the event that my mom was extremely sick. Like I watched my mom deteriorate. I watched her. I took her to every in this second phase of her ending up being diagnosed with cancer. I took her to every doctor's appointment. These doctors told me there's nothing we can do. Like I did not understand that. Like my mom told me months before she was been re-diagnosed or before she ended up having her surgery, because we found out that she was already diagnosed before she even um told us. But she tried to tell me in the beginning of the year about a dream that was given to her. She gave scripture and everything. And I'm like, Mom, please, it's not about you. Like I wasn't, to me, it's like that could never be you. But in the back of my mind, it's like, please, like my daddy, every time I pray, he hears me. But that wasn't necessarily coming from a place of faith. I would say now I'm realizing it was more so coming from a place of spiritual bypassing, because it was it was always drilled into my head, like, as long as you pray, as long as you pray, as long as you pray, like God is a healing God. He gonna heal her. He gonna do this. He gonna bring her out of this. It's not about what you see physically. It's not this. It's not that. So with that, that's what I rode on. In the anger that I should have probably had with my upbringing in, I guess, developing the spiritual bypassing, I projected on God wholeheartedly and completely. And I think, I'm so serious. I really feel like this done just freed me. And I'm only sitting here smiling because I'm trying to keep from crying. I really am trying to keep from crying. Like, I think y'all just help deliver me. So, okay, y'all give me a minute. I'm going to look at Bella.
I want you to be well. I was like, oh Lord, I need to send her a note and say, oh, she can only share what you can handle. Right?
Well, I'm okay with sharing it because it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
shared. Can be dealing with the same exact thing, and Coach,
I remember.
I done been through hell and back, and I've been questioning God, and I've been questioning my relationship with Him. Um, and it's been a very, very, very hard journey for me. Very hard journey for me. It's very hard for me to trust people when it comes down to being in churches and all that other stuff. Like it's a lot. And it was a lot of trauma that I experienced behind every piece of that
Mm-hmm.
journey. And I didn't realize that the foundation of it was the spiritual bypassing, but I didn't know what to
Mm-hmm.
call it. And I'm not going to be mad at people who taught me because they're only teaching what they
Mm-hmm.
know. But I just know that I'm in a space to forgive and know that it's okay, and I get through it.
Mm-hmm.
It- It's my emotional support dog.
Until we get her a real teddy. We're gonna get a
A
teddy.
real
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, we're gonna get her a real one. Go ahead,
I,
V.
I got. I'm sorry. I was gonna say I got. Well, one. Can you guys please? I don't know if you want to type that at the bottom, Apostle, with the definition of
Yeah,
spiritual bypassing.
I'm trying to get it because
Um.
I can only give pieces of it because it's so long. Um,
Okay. Yeah. I get.
no,
Yeah.
no, no.
Never mind. I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was gonna say though, Bree, at the risk of like, I don't want to further open up the can for you emotionally. But I was gonna say, sometimes we pray and we ask God for things like say listen, my mom, I lost my mom and my grandmother um to cancer. And a lot of times we pray and we're just like, God, we want God to answer our prayers, but we can't tell God how to answer our prayers because we pray and ask heal him on this side.
yes, Yeah.
Heal them on this side. But in actuality, we didn't say that. We said heal them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We didn't say God is like, okay, yeah.
Right.
she she met her healing. But that's not that's not in a literal sense of what we said, God. That's not what I said. So I get the frustration of that. With spiritual bypassing is the tendency to avoid confronting difficult emotions, psychological wounds, or
Yeah.
developmental challenges.
I
And
think
there's
Okay.
more to that. It is, I gotta type it. It essentially involves sidestepping personal growth by focusing on spiritual concepts rather than acknowledging and working through emotional or psychological issues. And so that piece to me is hugely important because it's not the reality. We are not discounting the fact that we have faith. It's the mental health and spirituality working together, right? We're not discounting faith. We're blending all of the realities based off of all of what the scripture is still saying. There is once appointed to a man to die.
Mhm.
We will return to dust. And though when we get stuck in those psychological strongholds, then we are walking around in irritations that develop into mental illness.
Mhm.
We are irritated. We got
Yeah.
anxieties. We don't know how to feel. Trust people. That's why I feel you, Bree, because it was the definition that kind of brought you freedom. Because it's like, I don't understand why I am feeling all of these feelings because it is unresolved, because there is no blending of all of the pieces that help us make sense. I can deal with grief because I know it's supposed to happen. I can deal with death because I know it's supposed to happen. I don't like when it happens, and I can trust myself to sit in that feeling.
But you know, Coach, when you're talking about the blend, um, um, I really understand where B and Bree are talking about when I met Shizetta, I met Coach in a space where we knew of do you remember Thomasina and Tyron?
Yes.
Okay, so we met them, and this spiritual bypassing is when there's not a blend of science and spirituality, of faith and focus and good health and all that stuff, where faith is the only thing that matters. You
Mm-hmm.
just believe God, and you ain't even got to go to the doctor no more, because that was a situation that I met Coach right around this situation where this man of God told this other person to stand on the Bible and don't go to the doctors no more. God is going to heal you. And a couple of weeks later, that that person passed away because
Mm-hmm.
it was faith, 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 while the doctors are trying to give reality. And I want you ready. But because Christendom says that reality is a fight against faith, it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole problem. So no, we don't want to hear it. No, 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 no. We don't want to hear anything that's anyone speaking negatively against this person's full recovery. And it's like the 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 hospital has a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. So
Yeah.
they're just trying to make sure you have all the facts.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going on with them from what we see. We're
Mm-hmm.
not discounting the woohoo! I just felt that in my belly. I don't know why. I was just about to say the miracle working God. We are not discounting our miracle working God, not at
Yeah.
all. But
Mm-mm.
but we forget that sometimes our miracle working God is saying, like you said, Bernicia, hey, the miracle is I'm about to uh, translate them from your physical world home.
Mm-hmm.
And so that spiritual bypassing, when faith is the vehicle, the fuel, like faith is everything, but it's positioned in the wrong place. We have faith that they're going to be healed, instead of we have faith that the will of God is going to be done. And
Mhm.
either God's going to heal them here or he's going to heal them there. And
Mhm.
that whole process of transitioning, here one day, gone the next. I spoke to my best friend the night on a Saturday night, and he passed away in his study Saturday morning.
Wow.
And I'm like, no. And I was stunned, and I couldn't cry. I was in stunned disbelief for 36 hours.
Mhm.
And I was just sitting in my living room stinking. I didn't know what to do. I was just sitting there. I couldn't move. And then finally, Stephanie came in and sat on the couch. I couldn't even stand up. I literally crawled, like slid out of my couch, put my head on her lap and cried.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, until I had no more power to weep from that thought process, it's like, wow. But see, when we grew up in a space, I grew up in a church space, like you said. I was absorbed into a church space where, because of all the trauma we were going through as a people, faith was everything.
Yes.
It was everything to us. It was all we had to lean on, all we had to pull through. Our moaning was a song. Woo-hoo. Our groaning was a song. Everything was a song. And then we get to a point now where it's like, I don't have to use faith all the time as my fish hook to pull me out of trauma, because everything's not trying to destroy me. In a space where we grew up in spaces where everything was trying to destroy. Because I remember when Shazetta said tonight, she said that the body has an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
That the body has an assignment, and it's going to answer that assignment up until death. I was like,
that's hard.
Because death ain't a conversation. Death is a conversation that only coroners and funeral homes love to talk about. And it's like, because they deal with loss so much, they're more positioned in ministering to the family than they are in absorbing that loss. But what do you do when you can't shake yourself out of that loss? Like Bernicia, you said you lost your mom and your grandma.
Oh, baby, my list is much longer than that, but that's who I spoke about.
Tell me about it.
I have
Tell me
4
about it.
brothers, a grandmother.
Okay, all right,
But go
okay,
ahead. Yes.
all right.
Thank
And
you.
so
Yes, yes.
and then Bree, you were talking about your mom. So here's my question back to you, Coach. It's almost an impossible question, and I apologize for asking it right now where we're closing, but I gotta ask it. Is there a difference between coping with the length of coping with loss, and is it different if you're in a healthy space versus an unhealthy space, or do we need to disconnect grief from healthy and unhealthy, and it's just a situation that we have to walk through?
Wow, great question. So, answer in a short version, it is a process that every one of us is going to walk through, whether it is related to death, physical death of a person, or death things. We're going to have those experiences. We'll lose a job, we grieve. We lose our best friend, we grieve. I lose my lollipop, I grieve. It just depends on what it is. That's loss, right? But so we do measure from the clinical world the idea of healthy grieving versus not. And for what we notice is that individuals who are very religious and will not lean into their grief, we almost determine them having a negative grieving experience because they are refusing to feel it, and it's manifesting in other spaces.
Okay.
The point is not to avoid, the point is to feel, right? Because you have those feelers for a reason. It processes you through, and everybody's experience is different. We do have some measurements for healthy grieving versus unhealthy grieving. And again, it is relative to the person. My biggest issue is don't don't try to avoid it, because it's almost like you ever you're driving a car and you want your car to stop and you want your feet to go through the bottom like the Flintstones did, but your feet ain't gonna stop that car. The brake is. So why are you holding back those spaces, right? And so we want people to be in that, and that's why that mental health and spirituality blend is so important, because that has to be a part of how we see all things. Those pieces come together, right? Let me address something that you said, because it's so funny in the spiritual space. Y'all remember, I think her name is Susan McLean. She was, it may not be her name, but she was in, oh my gosh,
was it Shirley MacLaine?
Shirley MacLaine, that's who it is, because she was in whatever, she was Weezer in whatever movie she was in. Y'all remember that? The fried tomatoes or fried green tomatoes or something like that. Shirley MacLaine recently did an interview and said at this phase of her life, I think it was with Oprah, she said at this phase of her life, she's having a conversation with death, because she wants to know how she's going to die, what that process is going to be. And she has really opened herself to have that experience. Well, when you talked about coroners, and those are the only individuals that have that familiarity, there are people in the spiritual space that are no longer seeing death as demise, but they welcome it because they're at this phase of life where they understand it has to happen. So why fight against it, right? There are some spaces that we really, hey Aiden, we limit our space when we do not consider the spiritual bypassing idea, and we just, no, God's got it. No, God's got it. And we won't deal with it. It will deal with us. And more than likely, it sends us into a tortured space. We are tortured by what we won't allow, because we have been taught that feelings are not facts. Tell me if your feelings were not facts when you were walking through that experience, though.
Right.
I mean, come on, let's just talk about it. And so we're not, mental health and spirituality, it's not enemies. We're not enemies. There is a space there that I think that sometimes religious folks can't even speak to, because clinically, that emotional mental space is so spiritual. They're both abysses, deep wells that we all draw from. And if we don't manage it, it will master us, which is why we've got adults wilding out on all kinds of things. Traumas that were repressed, sexual issues and sexual traumas that were repressed, they're coming back up in our 50s and 60s. And we're like, no, we didn't want to deal with that, but it's coming.
Yeah, you got to come with me to TPE, because if we get weird, I got a million questions I want to ask you about phobias. Because man, I'm the first person to say feelings ain't facts. I'm the first person to say it. Until I dealt with until I found out I had claustrophobia, and you can't tell me nothing. You put me in the spot too close, I feel like I'm in a casket.
Right.
And my body begins to physically manifest and respond according to a thought that happened in my head.
Yes.
And I remember they had to drug me to do an MRI. That little tube thing where there's only like an inch and a half between your face. I'm feeling something right now, just imagining it in my head, right? I remember they had to drug me and I had to keep my eyes closed. And when I tell y'all, I prayed in tongues for 20 some minutes, because it was the only thing that could pull my focus and my meditation off of the fact that I'm stuck in this casket. It was the only thing. I had more of an appreciation for prayer out of that moment, because I started wondering, I was like, man, can I be hypnotized to not be impacted by phobias? Because it was like phobias to this day mess up my entire world. Stephanie wanted to go on on a hot air balloon. And because I made it a point to give her everything she ever asked me, we did it. But we are up in the sky in this hot air balloon. And I think it was 4 feet by 6 feet. And it was 4 feet by 6 feet. And it was me, Steph, and the guy. And as God is my witness, I would have rather been out of that spot and in the air somewhere, because I was so traumatized, impacted by the space, that the fact that I had no space. I'm looking at all the sky around me, and I'm like, I had no space, to the point where I had to get down on my knees in the thing and cover my face and pray until that thing started landing. It's the craziest thing. But I got out of that. And a friend of mine, my friend who passed away, had did a whole series on phobias. And he said, no one is more impacted by phobias than church people, because they were trained in the fact that whatever you believe is real.
Listen, we'll stop there, because that's such a powerful.
That's a
It
whole
is
nother
a whole nother
segment.
segment, but it's a real thing. The power of the mind. The mind is so powerful that it makes no sense that we don't learn how to master those things, because it's mastering us.
Yeah.
But it can be re-engineered to work for us. It was never meant to just put us in a chokehold. The reason why there is a phobia is because something presented itself that causes that. If we deal with the core, we can help with the phobia. But nobody wants to talk about the deeper things. We only want to talk about the mysticism of spiritual things. But you're having a hard body, mental, emotional experience. That should change. We're going to stop.
I'm not playing with
Listen,
no
it's
snakes.
8:54 and we are long past Aiden's bedtime, and I'm watching him.
Forget a phobia,
Woo!
baby.
My God. There's so many places that we could go with this conversation. So for those of you that are on listening, you will listen later. Send comments. We would love to answer questions. I guess we're going to have some more of this piece of conversation next week. But listen, this definition, it will expand you. Do not, Dr. Daniels used to tell us this, he still does. What you deny, you are denied of. So what you say does not exist, you don't have access to it in the point where you need it. And every last one of us need to have mental and emotional wellness. We do, whether we think so or not. It's going to visit us at the most inopportune times, and we need to embrace that piece of us, since it was given to us as well. Listen, we'll stop. I'm going to go back to announcements. Let's end here, because this will be a washout. Aiden, I'm sorry we held your mommy too long, and I'm sure that my baby is screaming about me. So let me get over to that. I am going to follow you to TPE, because I want to hear about this expanded conversation around.
Oh no, we're not doing it tonight.
We're not going to do it tonight. Okay, so
No, you can. We're going to have a prophetic summit, because I need to bring you in where it's like, hey, talk about phobias, because we're stuck tonight. We're on Survivor series.
Okay.
Talking about the tools that you need to survive spaces that you're in.
Got it.
I just wanted to say that what I gathered after, like, the whole definition, spiritual bypassing, what I gathered from that is God and therapy.
Oh, that was your simple terminology. God and.
That's it.
God and
Yes.
therapy. Like, we can't rely
Christ
on
and the couch.
I'm getting mess somebody up. We want to rely on the scriptures for everything. Yep, I believe by faith God gonna do such and such. He gonna take this from me, but I'm also gonna take my medicine.
Hello.
I'm also gonna go to therapy.
Hello.
So God and therapy.
Yeah, because sometimes it's needed. We need our physicians as well. Some of us wouldn't have been healed if we didn't take something that helps us with our diabetes and high blood pressure. Listen, and again, I'm not just talking about mental, emotional. I'm talking about the whole gamut. Right? The whole gamut of resources that have been laid in the earth to assist us in every way.
Bernicia,
Listen,
tag therapy and God. Tag. Instead of gag, tag. TAG.
Okay.
oh
Therapy and
Lord,
God.
but the saints will be mad at you.
Come
The saints
on.
will be
Come
mad because
on.
they'll be like,
Put that on the
they'll be
t-shirt.
like, you
You
got to
were a
put God
human.
first.
You were
You got to
human
put God
before
first.
you were a Christian. You were human before you were a Christian.
I'm just
Therapy.
saying, the saints are gonna be mad if you put therapy before God. It's just gonna look bad.
Listen, it's like, but I'm delivered. I'm not about to care. You know what I mean? It's because you still need both.
Oh yes,
When you're doing something right,
that's
expect
true.
opposition.
Go
Go
Man,
ahead.
this
ahead.
was so good.
It was.
Thank you, non-talking
Good boy.
Bella. We appreciate you for
Leave
supporting
Bella
Bree
alone. Why
through her
are you
breakthrough.
so twisted with Bella? Bella didn't do
Just
nothing to you.
terrorizing her.
Because
Bella,
everybody on here has spoken. Even Aiden came on and said
Bella's
hello.
not a panelist. Bella's not a panelist.
Thank
It's
you.
okay.
Aiden
Bella.
came on. He ain't a panelist.
She's an audience
When
member.
Teddy,
Teddy
when the
ain't say
dog
nothing
came
either.
in and was trying to communicate, Bishop kicked him out. It's like, look, everybody who comes on, God say hi. And he still ain't looked at the camera. He's still looking over in the corner.
I
Go to
I'm
the
cannot.
going to
announcements.
the announcements. You guys get off, go to bed,
Cause
because
leave
we
Bella
go
alone.
on to some announcements, and I'm going to rerun this announcement for Rooted in Resilience again. Would you all share that? We got some room for some more people. Evolution partners never have to ask if they can attend because they are always included in the equation. So make sure you sign up. It's going to be phenomenal. It is. It is. It is.
Yes,
So
I look forward to
listen,
it.
we are signing off tonight. Don't you love when the peanut gallery comes back? I
Yeah.
love it. They just
Lord.
drive my life. I love these people. Can't wait to see them in person soon. We're still trying to work that out. B, I have not forgotten about Atlanta. We're trying to figure that out as well. We'll get more information there. Listen, we'll be back next week. We're going to expand on this conversation. I don't know how, but we will. But we'll see you next week, okay? Take care,
Love
everybody.
y'all. Bye.
Stay tuned for the announcements.
Y'all know what that is? It's amazing.
Evolution Church South Florida would like to invite you to worship with us. You can connect via our second Sunday virtual community or meet us in person for our fourth Sunday experience. Both begin at 3 p.m. sharp. Remember, this is the place where we explore, expand, and evolve. See you soon.
Hey guys, it's Coach She here. Listen, I wanted to take a few minutes to just talk to you about Rooted in Resilience, the group therapy experience, and what that means. This atmosphere is really being curated to allow for individuals like me, my Black sisters, to come together and have a space of pouring into, being able to have an opportunity to breathe through some things, and to lay down some of the experiences that we've been carrying over the course of our journey. It's a space where I believe we get to have a collective restoration. Now, I love that, right? Because I believe in the power of the crowd and the wisdom that is going to be shared in these group therapy experiences are wisdoms that only come from people like us, right? There will be different generations on in the session that will allow us to hear narrations of their stories and experience what rooted in resilience actually means. Now, there are many of our other sisters that have asked to join in on this experience. And because of my profession, I have a multicultural background. I work with many individuals just based on the fact that I am a therapist and we work in many cultures. I've had to politely tell them that this time, this is not for you. I have put this together for my sisters. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to do that for us. Now, I am of the opinion that sometimes people may think that when you put something together for people like us, that people are not necessarily interested. And sometimes that could be true. But I also have another thought. I think that sometimes for my sisters, right, we can be so busy with life and so busy with the responsibilities and so busy with the strong Black woman syndrome that oftentimes we don't slow down enough to take the time and allow ourselves to have a space to breathe. And sometimes that's all about how we value ourselves, right? We're used to giving to the children. We're used to giving to our relationships. We're used to giving to the job, and we show up and we over show up. And sometimes it takes us a minute to breathe out the reality that we need to value ourselves. Rooted in resilience is that opportunity for you. I would love for you to join me May 19th, Monday, May 19th. And you should see that on the flyer that is connected to this video, right? On one side or another. Monday, May 19th, we start the collective restoration of our sisters in shared narration, in community, in spaces of healing and responsibility. Now, the details of the itinerary are on my website. You can go there and look at the exact itinerary. Each session, the investment is $25, or for the entire 6 is $150. Now, we did that to allow for an a la carte experience for those individuals that might see some titles or topics that they say, oh, I've had enough of that. Let me just focus on three of these. And then for others, they will say, listen, I want the whole experience. I want all 6. Listen, if that is you, I want you to make the commitment to yourself. This time, value you, and go ahead and register, because your registration and your payment holds your slot. And we only have 15 slots available. Nope, let me recap. We only have 11 slots available now. So I would love for you to join this process with us. And by the time we get to the end, I think that you will feel lighter, that you will have greater perspective, that the term resilience will be redefined for you, and you can help not just yourself, but you can help others in your sphere of influence manage their anxieties as well. Listen, I'm Coach She. Check out all of the details on www.shazettaMorris.com, and I look forward to seeing you Monday, May 19th at 7 p.m. Don't miss it. Be a part of the experience. Have a great evening. Bye.